going to record. Okay, so hello everybody, welcome. I'm Rhonda Kaiser. I'm chair of the Brooklyn SWAB. We're here in beautiful conference room of the borough president.
Pablo Garcia, Brooklyn SWAB member on the Organic Industry Board and the Legislative Committee.
Oh, hi.
Can you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Alex Libby. I'm an internist in Bennington College, and I'm here to give a presentation along with Matt about the waste streams of New York's.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, I'm Matt Sedell, the chair of the council.
Hi, I'm Lacey Tauber. I'm the legislative director here at Borough Hall.
And I'm on camera. Yeah, I'm hiding in the corner. I'm Beth Sluppian. I'm vice chair of Brooklyn SWAB and also on the outreach committee.
Excellent. So thanks everyone for joining. Do we want to quickly, well, we can, after we have our speaker, we're going to vote on passing 2 minutes from 2 previous meetings. But we'll first, why don't we just get right down to it? So just again, put your name and affiliation here in the chat. I also just want to say something right off the bat that we are celebrating Black environmentalists for Black History Month. If you want to share in the email threads, please do share any work that you'd like to highlight. Next month, we will be having an amazing speaker who is the director of community engagement and environmental justice, who will take us through a sort of workshop about putting anti-racist policies into our environmental justice work. So that's going to, I'm very excited about that. But without further ado, I would like to introduce our speaker. We're delighted to have Councilmember Abreu, the newly appointed chair of the Sanitation Committee at the City Council. I will let you talk. Do we want to put it on speaker mode for Councilmember Abreu? Or is that just for us?
Yeah.
Let me know when you're ready.
Yeah, please. Thank you.
No, thank you so much, Rhonda, and thank you to the Borough President's Office. Please extend my regards to Reynoso, please. I'm just so excited to be here this evening. As the newly minted sanitation chair of the City Council, I represent Washington Heights down to the Upper West Side. And one of my commitments is to make sure that every borough is heard in the process on waste management and everything sanitation. And so excited to be here tonight, meeting Brooklyn SWAB. Let me just start off by talking about some of the things that I have been doing before I became sanitation chair, and then I'll talk about our vision forward. So I was the prime sponsor. Sorry, I was muted.
We can mute us.
So I was the prime sponsor of legislation that changed out the trash set out times. As you know, New York City probably had the earliest set out times than most cities in the country. And it meant that trash sat out for longer and resulted on a all-you-can-eat rat buffet for 14 hours on end. But now we've changed this such that, the rats trash sits out on the street for less time than necessary. And so we also added more evening shifts working with DSNY and the union to make sure that trash sits out for no more than 4 hours on a given day. And we believe it's making a big difference. So I was proud to be the lead sponsor of legislation for that. I was also the lead sponsor of legislation to establish rat mitigation zones. We were able to secure $3.5 million from the mayor, which goes towards equipment for these rat mitigation zones. It goes towards materials as well to address rat burrows, to address indexing, a process where the city enforcement takes place in a concentrated area and makes landlords accountable for their neglect of their buildings. We also are the prime. We also have the pilot, the containerization pilot for trash containerization. In my first year in office, we had parents coming to us and talking to us about the mountains of trash bags that were outside of our schools. And we invited Commissioner Tisch to our district, and she realized that a lot of schools produce a lot of trash to the point where parents couldn't even walk to school because of the impediment of the trash on the streets. And we made a difference, right? We were able to get the first, all schools in West Harlem and in Community Board 9 have curbside containers, and is making a huge difference in the rat mitigation zone, but also from 143rd to 153rd, we also have a residential pilot for trash containerization. Rat sightings have gone down by 68%. And you can walk in these neighborhoods here and you will notice it smells better. There's no trash bags on the street. You see less rats. And this is the type of vision that we want to take, not only Manhattan wide, but citywide. And I'm excited that the administration is taking a push here. We in the fall we sponsored legislation that allowed consumers, rather attendees of sport venues, of sport games, to bring their own reusable water bottle. And it's not only for sports, even for sport, it applies to sport venues no matter the nature of the event that's being held. So we know that Madison Square Garden, for instance, and the Barclays, they don't only host the Nets, but they also host a lot of concerts, and reusable water bottles would be allowed to be brought. And we know that plastic waste is a big issue, and we're working really hard to make sure that we're reducing our reliance on plastic and really relying more on reusables and creating a circular economy. In terms of work stuff that we have planned in the future, I know this is of interest to Borough President Reynoso, especially given that he was the prime sponsor of commercial waste zones. We are having a hearing on that at the end of the month. And it would be our honor to have the borough president come and share his remarks on what his vision was and how he hopes it gets implemented. It's coming in the fall. I would imagine that after implementation, there will be another hearing. But at this stage, we're going to have oversight on how the contract processing worked, learn more about these contracts, learn more about the labor conditions, and really try to get understanding on how the admin went about that process. But also, we want to continue doing meetings like this, right? Meeting with groups and experts. This is where we get to build on our vision and also continue the vision that sanitation chair Sandy had. We have a great relationship with her. She did an incredible work with zero waste, with addressing community composting. And these are issues that remain a priority for us. There's the community composting fight that we're going to have in the next few months. We're going to need the SWABs for that. We're going to need Brooklyn SWAB especially, right? We're having a budget hearing, I believe. Jaleesa is in March 17th. Jaleesa's on, by the way.
Hi,
Or
everybody.
March 14th.
March 14th, yeah.
So on March 14th, we're going to have the budget hearing from sanitation, and that would be our opportunity to really make sure that we let the council and the administration know, especially, that this is not something we're gonna let go by very easily. In fact, we're sure that we get the funding that we need. I also want to bring our attention to the fact that in 2006, the city established a city waste management plan, and by law, we have to update those plans every 20 years. So we're 2 years out from the next city waste management plan, and there are a lot of things that we could not have anticipated when the plan was done in 2006. For instance, we have technology, we have applications now, we have containers, we have different ways of containing our trash and processing our waste. And so it is going to be very important that we update the city waste management plan. And that's something that's required by state law. And the council gets to vote on that in 2026. So we're going to, be in the process of start thinking about what will that process look like, and so that DSNY can put forward a city waste management plan that is up to the times and anticipates, these issues. But most importantly, I'm here to take any questions you have, any comments, and tell me what it is that you want me to know. And again, this is the start of a great relationship, and we want to do things. We really want to do things, and I know that with your support, we can get there.
Any questions?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you wanna ask? the question?
Claire Mifflin from, design,
Yeah.
she, was concerned about the containerization, there was some confusion between what's for regular waste, and what's for organics. Do you feel the present system right now would encourage putting everything into the, waste container makeup, to discourage separation of the, version?
Right, not just organics, but all.
I was
recyclables.
I think the question was about the pilot, specifically, and it being only for trash and not for recyclables and organics.
yeah, so I share those same concerns. I think that the containers, it actually in my district, it actually included it included recycling, and I don't think it included organics, but this is for the schools specifically. And I share those concerns. I think that the admin was trying to take the approach of, I don't share this position, by the way, but I think the admin was taking the position of, this is going to impact, we're trying to have the smallest impact possible on parking spaces. But nevertheless, I think this is an important position to take, that we're going to have containerization. I think that's a big step in and of itself. That being said, we want to encourage recycling. That doesn't stop property owners from having their own containers of recycling on their sidewalks. We're going to push to make that a requirement. Just because they're not on our curbside doesn't mean that practice will be that practice will not continue. We want to encourage that as much as we can, and you better believe that any opportunity that we can take, and we're going to relay that to the administration, that is important to the Brooklyn SWAB. But this is something that weighs very heavily on me as well.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
I'm gonna get more on camera here if I can. So thank you again so much for being here. It's interesting that you brought up schools with the containerization pilot, because I hadn't even realized that schools were involved. And, especially juxtaposing that with, this year, finally all schools in New York City are receiving curbside organics collection. So I find this a very challenging juxtaposition. And I actually wanted to ask you a follow-up question about schools, because it's my understanding that the Zero Waste Schools program that Grow NYC has been running for a number of years, their contract is set to expire this year and was not renewed, although sanitation has been funding them. And I know that on the call tonight, we're actually joined, one of the people who's here is Danielle Foster. I just lost her. Russell, who's the assistant director of Zero Waste Schools with Grow NYC, and she may have some follow-up questions as well. But I'm wondering what you can do to support keeping that program going, so that we can make sure that we're teaching our young people to sort their waste properly, that we're able to continue this program. It feels like a real loss, to lose a program that currently is a $2.5 million budget.
Yeah, that is my number one priority for budget season, is community composting and these contracts that OMB has basically terminated. And so that's something that will be a priority for my office. I know at the OMB hearing in the fall, I made sure to ask along Sandy Nurse as well, why was this cut? OMB keeps calling this inefficient, but we know the SWABs have indicated that this is not only efficient, but it's also something that will encourage this behavior. And is also efficient from a financial standpoint, according to the Manhattan SWAB. And so we're going to be pointing out to those numbers well before the March 14th hearing. We're going to ask the admin on the spot on March 14th. Well, this is the information that we have. What do you have to say in response to that? But again, these contracts are super important, from the farmers markets to the school programs. We know the impact that this has to promote civic engagement, to promote the excitement and passion for this. Is not something that we should do away with. In fact, we need to be able to replicate that. And so I've been meeting with, Grow NYC, Lower East Side Ecology Group, Big Reuse. I mean, there have been a lot of groups that have brought this to our attention. And with your support, and with the Community Compost Coalition, I'm confident we can get there, but it's not going to be easy. We're going to have to continue to apply pressure on the administration. But as sanitation chair, this is not an issue I would take lightly. It's going to be my number one issue, and I'm happy to build off of that for the budget cycle. You just tell me how we can work towards that.
Thanks so much. I see that Danielle has a question in the chat, which I'll be calling you in a moment. I just wanted to clarify that the Zero Waste Schools program is separate from the loss of the community composting funding, that these are like two different losses. And there has been a lot of rallying around community composting, which obviously we very much support. I think another program that has been cut. And I'm gonna
yeah, we'll thank you for the clarification, and we'll fight for the school program as well. And with respect to the school containerization, yes, it was only in my district where the pilot was, but I do think that schools across our city should also have their trash containerized, which is notably not part of the administration's plans. But my hope is that we can also create a plan for schools citywide too.
And if I can just clarify about the schools, because I do work in schools in the rat mitigation zone in Lower Manhattan. And they're basically, the way they are in Lower Manhattan is they're sort of open, they can close, but they're tilt trucks, and you can see into them if you're adult size. And so they have them black for trash, blue for recycling, and then whatever. They have compost ones in Bronx and maybe Upper Manhattan. We painted ours with our partner schools, but the kids loved it, and it's a good community message. But so that's what they are. They're basically tilt trucks, and they make it super easy for custodians to wheel it out onto the curb in one turn rather than all those different brown bins.
Do we want to go to?
Oh yeah, Danielle.
Yeah.
That's great.
Hi, this is Danielle Foster Russell from Grow NYC Zero Waste Schools. I wanted to add a little bit extra clarification so that when you do go and rally for these programs, that that you are very, very clear about the distinctions. While I think curbside composting for schools is extremely important. It's also important community composting for communities as well. Just a little bit about what Grow NYC has been doing with schools. We've been working in schools since 2010. We are one of the only programs that work with schools in addition to a well-known program called Cafeteria Culture. Say that that Rhonda might know a bit about. We've collaborated. And we've helped all the schools in the Bronx newly enroll in the curbside composting program come on board. We're helping now over 750 schools in Brooklyn and Queens. We're not done yet. They're all new to the curbside composting program, which means they're containerizing not only their trash, but we're teaching them how to sort their organic waste or their food waste and food sold paper. And we're helping them put it in the right bins and understand the reason for that, and also helping them containerize it at the curb. And so I appreciate you, Councilmember Arbiu, I appreciate your concern about the loss of our funding. And we're here to support anything that you'd like to do to help us, get back inside the budget. We're super worried about that. We've been doing this work for a long time, and we really think that our work is essential. We'd like to continue to build on it. Schools will never stop needing support. And so we would like to be around to be able to offer that support to schools and to our younger generations. That's all I want to say. Not really asking any particular questions, want to offer that to you.
Well, so how you pronounce your name is Danielle?
Danielle.
Danielle, but you can call me D.
Danielle, no,
Yes.
Whatever you prefer. Danielle, so that's great. Thank you for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
If you can connect with Jaleesa right now in the chat, that would be great.
Yes.
And I would appreciate if you send all the distinctions, because I know that composting program varies. I want all these distinctions, so where the messaging is what we want it to be.
Absolutely. I will connect with the group at our organization that can pass all that information on to you. Happy to do that, Jalissa. I will provide my email address. I saw that you shared yours. We will happily connect. Thank you for the openness.
Yep.
That's the next question, right? Should I just ask it?
Yeah.
So Mark McIntyre from the chat says, do you know what OMB's rationale is for eliminating DSNY support for the compost project?
I think the way they see it is because the city is rolling out their own composting, that there's no need for these community-based programs, but I think we see them as both being necessary. So they think that because the city is moving in the direction of having composting everywhere by the fall of this year, that there's just no need for investing in these programs through those contracts. And I think that's misguided and not the right direction for us to move.
Yeah, can I just thank you for that, Councilman. I just one of the things that I think is misleading is to just for folks to talk about the city's curbside organics collection as composting. It is composting in one sense. It will be composting. It's not composting now. It goes to energy. It goes, to biosolids. We make some biosolids when the energy has been captured. And sanitation is entering into contracts. They haven't announced anything for out-of-city composting facilities, so that when we generate enough organics that can't go to the digesters, that the composting will be done out of the city. So that's the compost project was really composting being done in the 4 boroughs other than Staten Island. So the curbside program is not, with the exception of Staten Island, it's just, there's no composting going on in New York City under the curbside program.
Yeah, that's a concern. Thanks for sharing that, Mark.
And can I say also, the 4 SWABs have made a clear statement back in June of 2023 that we are advocating for a prioritizing composting solutions over co-digestion. So that's where we've come down so far as a SWAB, just so that's.
That doesn't seem to be the Adams administration approach. They're seem to be committed to, energy first, composting second.
Yeah, and what is the SWAB? What would the SWAB like to see? More composting facilities like the ones in Staten Island?
As many community composting facilities as possible, looking a siting study, pushing that forward, looking for more places to community compost in the city.
Yeah,
and
we would like to see Staten Island fully utilized.
Yeah.
To whatever degree utilized. And then moving outward from there, first building up local and community composting and then go out to Staten Island, and then from Staten Island outward. We'll always do some anaerobic co-digestion, but it shouldn't be the solution. I think for the city, it should be part of the solution, but we decide what we do with our organics. There isn't a higher power that doesn't answer to us.
And we also cannot.
Yeah, and
go ahead.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, we can't emphasize enough that our former sanitation chair worked really hard to get the waste equity law passed. And with everything now going to Varick Avenue to be made into a slurry for Newtown Creek, that's not waste equity.
Like truck traffic.
It's a lot of truck traffic in one area, which is exactly not what they wanted with that bill.
That would be an interesting oversight topic as well, by the way. So you can just send that over to Jaleesa as well. I think that'll be a great oversight topic eventually.
Okay. Great. Oh yeah, go ahead. So Allison, do you want to?
Yes, hi.
Hi.
I'm with the Manhattan SWAB, and I just wanted to circle back. I guess maybe I didn't realize or I forgot where the piloting program that you spearheaded started with schools. Tomorrow's actually the Department of Education has implemented 4 climate action days throughout the course of the school year, and then there's one tomorrow focused on waste. And there's a big issue with waste in schools, which, it's interesting that the parents, there's so much there's so many bags piled up on the curb, but we've had a member do waste audits in schools. I think, Rhonda, maybe you have too, where you open the bags and it's filled with supplies that are perfectly reusable. A lot of times at the end of the year, you'll see furniture out on the curb, especially at the end of the school year. There's just a massive purge, and it would be great if you could do something perhaps in, in collaboration with the education committee to see. I'm just we need more. I'm happy that there's a waste education day tomorrow in the schools, but it really needs to be every day continued, because we need to teach kids to stop throwing things away that other people can use.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you, Allison, for that. Certainly, we can build with schools here to target waste.
Okay. Maggie, would you like to? Thanks, Allison.
Hi. So I'm also with the Manhattan SWAB. I'm head of the Long Range Planning Committee, and a couple of items. And I'm sorry I was late. The orange bins say compost all over them, and yet it's not taken for composting. And the thing about it is that we've been studying how to maximize participation in programs, because you can have all the infrastructure you want, and if you don't have people participating, then what do you have? So we, you're lying, basically. The sanitation department is lying to the people who are the most interested in changing their behaviors. We call them the eager beavers. And it's, there are 5 groups of people, right? There's the eager beavers. You tell them to jump, they say how high. You got the next group that it has to be convenient. The next group, if their friends and family and neighbors won't laugh at them, then they'll do it. And the next group need an incentive, and the final group need a disincentive. And so, if you're lying to the eager beavers, how are you going to get the rest of them? So
Well, Maggie, I'll tell you that if you want me to jump, I'll jump.
Yeah, no, all of us in here, all of us in this room are eager beavers by definition. And I saw you at the REACT meeting, and I was very impressed with how much you knew about zero waste and everything. So I'm just hoping, though, that they've cut $4.1 million out of the education and outreach.
Mm-hmm.
And if you compare how much we spend on education and outreach to, say, Seattle and San Francisco, they spend over $3 per person per year on education and outreach, and we spend 86 cents.
Wow.
So, yeah.
That's we're actually looking into that for the commercial waste zone here at the end of the month. I believe DSNY cut the budget for outreach for these businesses, small businesses especially, that are going to be subject to commercial waste zones. And we're going to be doing a joint hearing with small businesses. Believe that DSNY should have the outreach capacity here to make sure that commercial waste zones run very smoothly. So the outreach is something that remains very top of mind for us. So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, I don't think that the sanitation department has ever really understood, the 5 groups that I was telling you about. I don't think, that, I mean, I've been in the SWAB since 1988, and it's been pretty clear that all of this time they've had very little interest in this. They fob it off, the education, to other groups, or just don't do it. So it's a basic problem with them.
Thank you so much, Maggie. I want to keep things moving a little bit, and let's move on to Lee. Thanks a lot, Maggie.
Thank you so much. I'm Lee Stark. I'm from BK SWAB. I work on outreach, and more of a comment than a question. But something I've seen with eager beavers who kind of function as grass tops in a lot of the outreach that we've been doing is a sort of mental conflict between the digesters as the goal to produce gas, to produce captured methane, or a collaboration with National Grid. Again, in conflict with the latest swamp release from New York State, as well as building electrification, sort of the removal of gas in outreach happening from the mayor's office. So again, we're investing a lot of money in creating gas, but we're also investing a lot of money in removing gas infrastructure. So just again, a general comment, something that I've seen that feels a little hard to communicate.
Yeah, Jaleesa, if you could take that down for us to research further, please.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Lee.
Right. Also, yeah, if I can also say that's, you know, the CLCPA is pretty clear about producing methane and also co-digestion. So the state, you know, Climate Action Committee has kind of spoken about it, and they passed that. They passed that into order.
It's appropriate to use methane and where it's not.
Right, exactly. So
Yeah,
Sorry, I didn't hear that last point on methane.
just like Matt was saying, yeah.
there's appropriate times according to the CLCPA when you should make methane, when you shouldn't. And, you know, what we're doing is maybe not within the spirit of the CLCPA.
Okay. So we should see what's in the spirit and what's not within the spirit.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Yeah. Does Mary Ellen want to ask a question?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Rhonda. First question, with the new Waste Committee, I know that there's a lot of new Republican voices in that. And I was wondering if there's anything that we as the SWAB can do in terms of messaging or other activities to help you as you do more activities and hearings with these new members. And then my second question, sorry, is that you mentioned doing an oversight hearing, and having recently attended Community Board 1 in Greenpoint about what's going on in Newtown Creek. It seems like the neighbors there are really quite disappointed and upset about what's going on, and a lack of transparency with how Newtown Creek is operating and what kind of air quality may or may not be going on there. They are angry and frustrated that they don't have information about health issues. And so I think that would also be something that would be very interesting for Brooklyn people to learn more about. So those are just the two questions that I wanted to share. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, Mary, remind me of your first question.
First question was, how can we help you with the Republican members of the committee?
So, you know, it has been a drastic change since it was before. And, you know, my team has been trying to figure out it was clearly very deliberate when you look at the composition of what it used to be and what it is now. So we're still trying to, you know, wrap our hands around why that is. I'm not sure if it's because the speaker wants to take a different direction, but regardless, a lot of my colleagues, these are folks we can work with. You know, they're very, I think they're very open and approachable. I think that if there's something that you want to bring to their attention, I'm happy as chair to always refer, to dedicate my staff to connecting the SWAB to other council member staffs to have open dialogue. I'm very faithful that, you know, my colleagues will be very open to that, and I'm happy to nudge them as well. And with respect to the second question, I have more research to do there, to be quite honest. And happy if you can send Jaleesa the question, we'll get you an answer.
Daniil adds a fact that 35% of what comes out of the waste that comes out of schools is recyclable. So that's an interesting fact. I didn't realize that. And 50% of it is compostable.
Yeah.
So it's the heaviest part of it.
Yep.
Anybody else have questions? Wow, I thought we'd be going for hours with these questions.
Well, it's important to note that 60% of what we export is recyclable and compostable. And then there's more that's reusable.
Mm.
So
right.
That's even worse. than what you were just saying about the schools.
Wow. I would also like to add that, we're also working with Manhattan SWAB on addressing microplastics. Jaleesa, can you speak to some legislation we're pursuing there?
Yeah, so we are going to be introducing legislation that would require microplastic filters on any like laundry machines that are in any laundering services. With the thought being that, it's important for us to reduce wherever we can. I know California, there was a bill that ended up being vetoed, but it would add the microplastic filters for when you buy the wash machines. And Joyce from SWAB is so great to let us know that they're working on state legislation at, New York State that would do the same thing. So we just thought this could be a good opportunity to kind of do that with businesses while we wait for that legislation to progress. So we're really excited about it. And we hope to have a bill draft back really soon.
Great.
Oliver, I saw you smiling. Everything okay?
Do what? What did you say? Sorry.
No, I saw Oliver smiling about microplastics. I'm not sure if he wants to share anything.
No, thank you. It's just always good to see progress in all these areas.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Deborah, you have a question? Sorry.
Yeah. Someone here at the borough.
Hi, yeah, I'm in the community composting
Can you hear?
community.
Yes.
Wait, before
Okay.
we talk composting, can we talk, I wanted to ask Julissa a question about the microplastic.
Okay, can Mark, can Mark ask his question first? We hear in the Borough Hall, and then you go next. Is that all right?
Yeah, I'm just sorry, I had my hand up and I didn't realize we were finished talking about the microplastic.
Yes, sorry.
Okay, Robert Saffer, Monty Garden, BK SWAB. I'm a big concern about DSNY as a huge institution that has their incentive, I think, is just to get more funding for more trucks, and I think they have no interest in community composting or helping people reduce their composting because they'll just have a bigger budget. They'll have more and more trucks. Once we can't handle it in the city anymore, they'll be sending it out of state, perhaps. And there's never going to be an incentive for people to reduce if they don't understand the impact of their food scraps, their food waste. And so basically it's just going to be a self-fulfilling disaster.
Yeah, Mark, I don't think it'll be a self-fulfilling prophecy. I hold a lot of hope that as the council, our job is to make them care. And our job is to hold them accountable. So I don't think it will be a self-fulfilling prophecy. I think the council has a lot of leverage when it comes to the budget process, and we're going to exercise that power that we have. So again, count me as a partner, count this committee as a partner in this fight. I'm always optimistic cautiously because we have a lot of colleagues who care about this, and we're going to make a big stink about this. Okay. Now, Deborah.
Thank you. Yes, please. Thanks, Deborah, for waiting.
No problem. I totally agree with what was just said, because I think we've spent so many decades throwing garbage into landfill. And we can look over in Staten Island and see what happened with those decades. We have so much garbage that's even tainted with radioactive materials. We have that in Brooklyn, we have that in Staten Island. We have problems for the communities that live there, health problems and air quality and groundwater quality and ground quality. So I'm totally in agreement with everything that was said. And I want to ask specifically about the micro and the laundry machines.
No, I won't.
Dylan, we can hear you if you're speaking. The laundry machines, if we're only going to take commercial and we're not going to deal with residential, For example, my building is just doing a huge laundry machine redo with the company Hercules, and we're residential. So we have no idea whether or not they're using the filters, this company Hercules, but the company is, are you saying the company is going to be required to put the filters in, or the people in the commercial buyers, or who's going to be responsible for that piece?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Jaleesa can answer that.
Yeah, so for right now, it is focusing on commercial businesses. So the way the bill is set up is that DCWP would enforce that. So any, laundromats, at some point, a DCWP worker would come in and make sure that the microplastic filter is attached. We don't have anything we don't have any legislation currently being drafted about residential. We are looking into that. It also seems as though the state might pass legislation that would have the filters be required, in new purchases. So that's something we're looking at as well. But we are the thing with residential requirements is how we would parse that out between, certain classes of buildings. So a smaller, 1 or 2 family home, it maybe wouldn't apply to something like that. But I do get what you're saying, where you have a very large building that might be handling a lot of laundry, and there is, a need for that. So it is something that we've thought about. I think our bill drafter for this specific piece of legislation felt that it would be most prudent to start with the commercial, since it is very new and we haven't really seen this specific type of legislation being passed in a municipality this size. So I think that was a thought that we'll kind of, start here, see how it goes, and then see where we can kind of like pick out pieces. And of course, when we're doing these things and we're getting these ideas, we still put in legislative requests so that we can own the idea if we do decide later on, let's expand this to residential. So it could be a possibility, but we are going to be starting with commercial.
Yeah, and so we'll make sure to own that legislation internally and move on it eventually. Jaleesa, I think it does make a lot of sense, especially in these large buildings where you have Hercules running these massive laundromats basically within buildings.
Exactly.
It would make sense to eventually capture them too. So thank you, Deborah, for that nuance there. It makes a lot of sense. And, one thing that we realize with legislation, especially in the council, when you start incrementally, you get to change a lot faster than when you go too big. A lot of times, look, going big is important, but sometimes going too big is when legislation dies. And we want to do this incrementally, but also expeditiously. And so, we get past the first hoop, and then we're going to get past the second hoop as fast as we can. And it's a great idea, great addition that you had it to this conversation. Thank you.
Nice. Thank you. Also, someone in the chat, Mark Hellerman, says, do you know if and when the containerization rules will be enforced? So you mentioned in the earlier that it goes into effect in the fall.
Yeah. So you're talking about the containerization pilot, right? Or commercial waste removal. Yeah, sorry. Commercial waste removal goes into effect in Queens Boulevard, and is going to be somewhere between September and October. And so that's when it'll first go into effect. And then after that, there'll be installment periods. DSNY told me that they couldn't just do it all at once. So they're going to do certain neighborhoods in installments. And at the oversight hearing, we're going to try to ask them which neighborhoods you're going to do and what order, and why you're doing it the way that you're doing it. So, but the first one should come this fall. September, October is when we were told. But we'll get a lot of clarification at the hearing at the end of the month. And Jaleesa, do we have a date for that yet or not yet?
We're probably going to be doing February 27th. That should be calendared within the next day or so.
Okay.
Sorry, was that going to be containerization or commercial waste zones?
That's for commercial waste zones.
Okay.
At the end of February. So, we're excited. What our president did, many years ago is finally coming to fruition. We waited too long.
Yeah. Thank you. So we have a couple more minutes. We really have a tight schedule tonight, and I don't want to take up too much of your time, council member. And Maggie, I'm just going to have you hold for a second. We're going to have Vondra ask a question because she hasn't asked one yet. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Just to say, interesting to comment here from Caroline Press about having another agency other than sanitation manage organics. Am I saying this correctly, Caroline? In which case I absolutely agree with you.
Yes.
I think that the sooner we get organics out of sanitation and frankly into landscaping, it would be great. However, the other thing that I really want, and it's just nobody ever, and I've been saying this for the 13 years that I've been collecting compost, where is the oversight on the waste export budget? I said it to Letitia James when she was on sanitation, Sandy Nurse said on, and where is the oversight on this on the waste export budget? And who are the people getting the $432 million out of the budget for taking our garbage out wherever? So I hope that there's somebody in your office that will take it.
That's a great idea. I think that's a great idea, Vondra. That's a great idea. We have to figure out, the cities is making as a lot of us say, a killing with a lot of these waste exports, and we want to know what's informing those contracts. With respect to your first point, Vondra, I want to keep composting in DSNY because it's a priority, right? And I don't want to cede that authority to someone I don't know how they're going to handle this issue. So I'm personally fine keeping it with DSNY and making them care about this issue. I don't want to cede that away because it's something I'm very passionate about.
Okay, interesting. That's and actually, just so that people know, we're going to have a talk in just a little bit about some research that we put together. Matt and an intern, Matt from the Manhattan SWAB and an intern have been working together about on compiling the tonnages from the various sanitation districts and the map of where it goes and the final destinations. So that kind of gives us an insight into the budget, I guess.
So it's all based on
waste export numbers from open data. Very interesting. We'll give you the numbers after. We're
That's
done.
super interesting.
Can't stay.
Please. Yeah, Rhonda, I have to run now.
Yeah.
I'm stuck in I'm in Staten Island right now. It's this meeting from Staten Island. I don't know. You may be wondering why I'm here, but it's because of sanitation related work. I have to run back to a meeting in Manhattan. So my apologies. I have to run now.
Thank you so much for giving your time tonight. We really appreciate it. We look forward to more conversations. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a good night, everybody.
Thanks so much.
Okay.
I just want to add that if you take it out of the DSNY.
Okay, wait, say it louder.
If you take it out of the DSNY, the administration, the mayor's office, is really responsible for executing policy. So it doesn't matter where it goes, it's up to the administration to push it forward. It doesn't matter what department it goes into. It could go into parks, it could go into sanitation, but go into FDNY. If it's not, if the mayor doesn't want to do it, it's not gonna get done. But choose your mayors carefully.
Right. Exactly. Okay, so.
Hi, everybody. I think we covered pretty much every policy topic there is to cover there, but I just wanted to just remind everyone two things, logistical things from our office. One, the borough president is doing his State of the Borough speech on Tuesday the 13th at City Tech. It's at 6 p.m. and it would be great if some folks from the SWAB could join. We would love to see you there. He's going to talk a bit about what we've been up to over the last year and what our vision is for the work in the next year or two.
Yeah.
And then I also just wanted to remind everyone that applications for community board membership are still open until I believe the end of next week. We have had some luck recruiting folks from community boards to the SWAB, but it would be very cool if we could do the other way around and get some folks from the SWAB on their boards. So that application is on our website and I encourage everyone to consider applying. That's it.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, great. So why don't we bring in our other speaker for tonight, we have, Alex Libby, who is an intern from Bennington College. And, Alex has been working on compiling data with Matt. And do you want any more introduction? Or I think your presentation will say it all. Do you want to share your screen? You why don't you share it with someone? Who's logged in here?
This is gonna take.
I know this is gonna take forever. We should have done this before.
Just send someone a link to.
Oh yeah, can you send it to
Michael?
Michael, can you present this? And while we're doing that, we'll be efficient and vote on the minutes. But Michael, what email should he send it to your Michael Research email? Yeah, can you put it in the chat? No, it's okay. No, it's just gonna be Michael at Michael Reeser, is that the one we use for him? Do you guys know? Yeah. Okay, so R-I-E-S-E-R. Okay, so while we're waiting, we rather than play hold music, we should vote on the minutes from December and January. December meeting minutes, we voted to wait until we cleaned them up a little bit more the last meeting, so we probably had a little bit of time to read them. And the January meeting minutes looked great when I looked at them. If anyone wants to, should we propose it separately?
Yeah.
All right, so does anyone move to approve the December meeting minutes first? Mary Ellen, okay, thanks. Does anyone second? Okay, Mark, and okay, does anyone all in favor? I guess we have a quorum too.
5, 6, 7.
Anybody, we have a quorum, okay, does anybody vote to not approve them? Does anybody vote no? Maggie, do you vote no, or is your hand still up from
I'm not
before?
a member.
Exactly, your hand is still up, just FYI.
Oh, well, yeah, I wanted to ask Sean one last question. I didn't take it down.
Okay.
I put it in the chat.
Okay, great. So, any abstentions? Okay, we've passed the December meeting minutes. Does anybody move to pass the January meeting minutes? Mark, thank you. Does anybody second? Thanks, Mary Ellen. And all in favor? Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Excellent. We've just passed our meeting minutes from December and January. Not yet. And in the meantime, Michael, have you received the presentation? Okay. Can you share it with me? And then I will forward it to Michael. Thank you. So do you want to give a start to the talk, Matt? Just like an introduction?
Yeah, I guess just briefly, Alex worked on this almost entirely on his own. I gave him some technical advice and support. This was something of interest originally, but you think of plastics, and I helped Alex assemble the data and gave him some pointers on how to use spreadsheets to do these kinds of exercises. There are limitations in the data. This is not our fault. This is what we have to work with. And Alex will discuss those limitations, which are extremely interesting as you go through through his presentation. And my only advice to Alex is go slowly.
Yeah, can you remember to share it, give him access if he doesn't have access? Okay.
Could you people who are speaking move up a little bit, because it's hard to hear you?
Yeah.
We're moving the mic so you can hear better.
Now,
Correct.
Michael, tell me when you receive you got it from me? Okay,
Mhm.
great.
We also, but the thing is, if you move, we'll see you better.
Oh,
We
yeah.
don't actually see you.
Do you see him? Do you see him now?
Yeah, but if
They're
you
little
moved up, if he's sitting where you sit,
Yes, you can have my.
just let it be.
Yeah, they look very small at the end of the table.
Oops, sorry
for that bang.
Yeah. Okay.
Michael, are you able to screen share?
Yes.
Thank you.
Shall I screen share right now?
Yes, please
Yes,
do.
please.
Okay.
Thanks everyone for waiting. I've been waiting to hear this information. I'm excited.
Can you see?
Yes. Is
Can we get a copy of this later? Sorry.
that okay?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, sure.
No, Alex, when you want to change slides, I want you to say slide.
Okay. Hi everyone, I am Alex Libby. I am a student at Bennington College doing an internship down here in New York. I've been working with Matt, as he explained, collecting data on New York City's waste exports. Slide.
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 So the main question, what do we do with all the refuse produced after it's been collected? The sources we used New York City open data for 2020, 2021, and 2022 to get the raw numbers for it. We used the DSNY tonnage analysis, the 2017 waste characterization study, page 11, and the solid waste management plan biennial update report in 2020. Slide.
Slide.
I have other things I'm supposed to show you. So how do we get these numbers? So when we went to open data, we got the monthly tonnages for all the boroughs. But what we had to do after that is we had to create a shortened borough ID combining the borough and the district numbers. So then we could so I have stuff on here I'm supposed to show, so I have to and we were able to then use this to find the vendors for all this waste because the resources we were using had the primary vendor data as marine transfer stations. So once we were able to convert that to a vendor, we now knew where the material was being sent. Slide. So we had some limitations on our data. Some of the data we used, for example, the waste characterization study and the solid waste management plan, are not fully up to date. We hope that there will soon be more up-to-date information to come out to verify all this, but right now this is the best we can do. We feel confident in the results, but there is some margin for error because of this lack of recent data. Some numbers from these, the waste characterization study, we saw 34% of the refuse was organics for composting, 34% was residential recyclables, 23% was other, and 9% was other devotables. And the solid waste management plan showed the path of this garbage from a facility to a vendor to a disposal site, which could either be a landfill or an incinerator. For example, the DSNY Staten Island transfer station would be used by a public service and it would be brought to Lee County landfill. Slide. So this is what, so I know it's a bit stretched, I hope you guys can read that fine. So this stuff here shows the facility name, who it's owned by, if it's owned by the city or private, the vendors for all them, and the amounts that go through them daily and over a year. You can see some of these vendors are responsible for multiple disposal sites. Like Waste Management of New York LLC is responsible for the Atlantic Waste Disposal Landfill, High Acres Landfill, and Westchester Vesco Incinerator. And this is brought there through a combination of railroads and trucks. As you can see on the far right. Do you want me to stay on this for a second?
I don't know, I know all the garbage nerds are like, we're all like excited on this.
Background on this, this is the Department of Sanitation biannual update on the solid waste management plan as to where this stuff goes from each of the marine transfer stations. And Alex picked up all of the kitting districts and translated that into sanitation districts, and then matched in 2022 tonnage and applied these metrics to 22 tonnage. This was from 2020. It's not up to date, this chart. So we basically updated it. And Alex did that with his amazing Excel skills. So
Very
I'm
nice.
just giving some more background.
Yeah.
We did not hear it, sorry.
you
Matthew
didn't hear it.
Galloway.
Yeah, you say it again, Matt.
This is a 2020 document from the Department of Sanitation's biannual solid waste management update. We've updated it for 2022 using approximate numbers from this report.
Okay.
Alex did most of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we have the resource for that. I'm not able to show it here, but it exists if you guys want to see it at some point.
And why do we have some red? What does it mean if it's in
Oh.
red?
Those are the incinerators.
Incinerators.
Okay.
It means fire.
Yes.
Okay.
Hey,
so-
Alex, it's Kendall. Are you looking at both DSNY collected and commercial, or just DSNY collected?
Well, this is way higher. This report is way higher than the reported tonnage for 2020. On open data, so we haven't had a chance to meet with DSNY to ask them what the heck's going on with these numbers, but they're way under. So we are assuming that there's stuff in there that is not totally curbside aggregate discards. And this only applies to refuse, which is a component of that. So we're not sure yet, but we use the percentages to get a rough approximation of what's going on in 2022. And that's what the DSNY told us to do. So that's what we're doing.
Nice.
The math, there's a bunch of private transfer stations on here that don't handle residential waste.
Right.
That's correct. Yes, we know that. But I'm not entirely sure which are which. So we just applied the metrics for what goes to where. Then we can talk about. We're just picking up residential waste in the tonnage report. So we don't care.
Oh.
All right, so yes, can we move on to the next slide?
Yeah. Thank you.
So the amounts, again, that we have all this information laid out in sheets if you guys want later. But for landfills, we saw 2.5 million tons of refuse ended up there. And of that, 300,000 tons of that were plastic, and for incinerators, similar 1.2 million tons of refuse went to them, and 156,000 tons of that was plastic. So 53% more goes to landfills than incinerators, which I think is positive.
Yes. Yeah.
Slide, please.
Yes. Yeah.
So this is a map of where it all goes to.
Wow.
Yeah, the farthest one to the left is Lee County. It's a 10-hour drive away from New York. I'll stop for that.
No, go ahead. You can, if you want to move on, you can.
Okay, slide please.
Wow.
Could it go from barge to truck?
Most of it goes directly from barge to sometimes rail, and then just directly by rail. Most of it goes out by rail, but a lot of it goes like Havana and New Jersey truck. DSNY truck takes it right out there. Places.
Yeah, so then who gets what? Where is this going to? So in the communities living around these facilities, these landfills and incinerators, the average income is 39,000, which is 26th percentile. And on average, these areas had a white population of 45%, 40% less than the national average. we have to consider these racial and economic disparities between communities with and without these, and we need to address this inequality. The negative health and environmental impacts of these facilities are disproportionately located in communities of color and low income communities. And the money New York gives to these places to take garbage is most often given to the companies and not the communities affected. So a reasonable solution for this would be focusing less on the recycling and more on the reduce and reuse aspects of it. Obviously, the recycling is an important point, but we have to stem this at the source with stuff like, I know trying to get past right now the packaging reduction and recycling act, and pending bill to expand the bottle bill in Albany. So obviously if these were passed, these would be great steps toward the ending we're looking for. And then slide. Yeah, that's
wow. Did someone have a question? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Great.
Good job. Alex is 18 years old, everybody. You just want to.
19.
Oh, 19. Sorry.
Take that back.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Great. You know how many years I've been waiting for that bloody.
I know, Sandra.
Jesus Christ.
I know.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Thank you.
Way to go, Alex. Way to go.
Yeah, I know, right? Alex is the hero of the day. Okay, so we have a lot of questions.
Yes,
Debbie,
Deborah?
yeah.
Thanks. So first of all, yes, congratulations. You're the same age as my son, and I've never seen him do any such data analysis. So it's very impressive. Second of all, I guess this is maybe a Lacey government question. Could NYC, well, incentivize when they make these contracts and say we're only going to contract with companies that are going to give a piece back to the community? You know, could that be some part of our future contract?
That's an interesting.
I don't know the answer to that, but you know who might is our comptroller.
Yes.
You know, with the oversight over these contracts, I think he would be a great person to talk to about that.
Right. That's a great idea. Maybe we could have Stephanie.
Bradlander, yeah.
Yeah, yes. Or
There
someone
is,
from Brad's office can come.
a lot of this is so nitty gritty and in the weeds, you know, thinking about all this different legislation and the contracts that are involved, and it would be helpful to have like more of a deep dive about that.
I love that. That's a great idea. Very nice. Yeah, okay, so Danielle, you have a question.
Well done. I think you've excited a lot of waste nerds here tonight. Yeah, and I'm happy for you. That is a nice thing for a young person to be doing. My question is about the race and equity disparities, and if you could share a little bit more about that. I noticed the piece of data that you put in the report is about 45% of the people who live in the communities are white, and then that is 40% less than the rest of the city, rest of the country. What other things did you learn? And yeah, because a lot of the reason I'm asking this question is a lot of what we do when we go into schools is bring that point up and letting kids know that like this waste is not only affecting New York City people, it's also affecting people in far off communities, and it's affecting their health, it's affecting their economic, you know, and so I'd like to hear you talk a little bit more about what you learned about that part of it.
Yeah, so this environmental justice aspect, it's something I've thought about for a long time. I was born in a town that was a Superfund site, so you know, from that, so I have that perspective. And talking about this, some other, you know, stuff I noticed when looking at the health effects and the environmental impacts of you know, one of the questions I had was, why would people let their waste go here? We look at, you know, what an incinerator does to a surrounding community, and we see very obviously that it has these negative health effects. So one of the points I was hearing a lot was how some people obviously have more have an easier job getting these away from where they live. If you obviously have the connections, the ability to, you know, get off to a protest or stuff like this, obviously you have a much easier time keeping these landfills and incinerators away from your communities, and then those obviously have to now go somewhere without that easily accessible power to fight back against this. That was a point I really enjoyed learning about and heard a lot.
Good for you. Can we get access to your slides and your sources? I mean, I love the way you put it together. We would love to be able to use some of this information. Of course, we'll vet it, but use it in our schools with our students. And we will be happy to say it was done by you, a young college student from your school. It'd be wonderful to be able to say that. And I also would be happy to add you to our list of youth advocates that we talk to young students about. So if you're open to that, it'd be nice to add you to that list.
Yes, I would very much be open to that. And yes, we can get you the data. I assume Matt can need some help on that. But yes, that all sounds incredible.
And just to be clear,
congratulations to you.
He's a cafeteria culture intern, and we loaned him to the Manhattan SWAB. So happy.
Nicely done. Congratulations to both cafeteria culture and to you, young man.
Thank you.
And
Really.
Yvondra.
Yeah, listen, again, great catch for cafeteria culture and for Matt. So you have this one page, a very dense page of the vendors, and then you have a column that says whether they're a long-term contract or it's an interim contract. Right? So is that the total page of vendors? Surely there should be more vendors for $432 million.
Wow.
No, there are 35 contracts.
Did you hear that, Vondra?
35 contracts.
35 contracts.
Actually, it's less than that. I'm sorry, it's not 35.
You and you mean the mayor can't take 2 million out of them?
What did you say? Can you say that again?
So anyway, we're talking about, so well, I would like to know, there are 35 contracts for $432 million.
Yeah, yes.
35, let me just sit with that for a minute.
Yeah.
35 mega contract, capitalist daddies.
It's actually less than that.
The greedy and shall we say mendacious and that nasty mayor.
Wow, I feel like I'm suddenly in a Tennessee Williams play, but yes.
No, we have
Don't
what are we
hold back.
gonna do? Can
Don't
we
hold back,
can we now hold this up?
9 major contracts.
All right.
Is that 432 million annual? Is that the ballpark of what we spend on the landfilling? 432 million annual?
The waste export budget is annually for somewhere in the area of $432 million.
That's just on the contractual obligation to do it. If you want to look at it on a fully loaded basis, it's about 1.3 billion. About 1.3.
I was waiting for the, so how does it get from 432 million to
because within that contract, within that 1.3 billion is the contractual, so the contracts only cover from the minute the DSNY dumps it on a tipping floor to the minute that the vendor picks it up and ships it to a landfill and an incinerator for final disposal. Okay, that's all that is. The fully loaded cost is the DSNY pickups, the trucks, administrative personnel, healthcare benefits, right? So we spend $1.3 billion to export and pick up and collect all of our waste. And the real issue is that we knew that this was and Kendall can talk about this, and maybe I'm wrong, but this was how we closed Fresh Gills. This is how we did it, right? And the idea was somewhere between then and now, we would have figured out a way to reduce, reuse, and recycle as much as possible. And we stopped at 20%, and here we are today.
Mm.
That's, I mean, I'm just giving a very, very high level. You know, there's a lot of nuances and details, which I'm sure someone from DSY would.
Well, I mean, Freshfields closed without a plan, so the city dealt with that through a bunch of sort of short-term interim contracts with private transfer stations, and did that for 10, 12, 15 years until they not only adopted the 2006 plan that agreed to rebuild 4 of the MTSs and 3 rail transfer stations, and then it took another 8 or 10 years for those to become operational. So Matt, a slight correction on where the change of ownership takes place. DSNY staff load the containers. So the transfer of control of responsibility comes after that container is loaded and then handed over to the private vendors to dispose of. DSNY unions insisted on maintaining control over that function.
That's an important point. That's even less work than vendor.
Right. Right.
So it's even more for the greedy bosses. Thank
No,
you.
it's not greedy. It's just we need to figure out a better way. That's all. It's not
One more
responsibility.
Yeah.
One more note I would add is that I have a distinct memory of Catherine Garcia at one of her first budget hearings saying clearly that the Bloomberg administration had a bunch of options, and from her perspective, they chose the most expensive one. We could talk about what that is, but that was her sort of takeaway, or her point about this system is an expensive one to operate the way it's constructed. Those containers are dedicated containers. They go out and back. They go out to a landfill or an incinerator, and they have to be returned to the city in one of the MTSs. So all of those elements of the system are pretty complex and therefore expensive in waste, like every other thing that we touch. The more times you touch it, the more you add cost to it.
Right. Give it to Parks.
The Seneca incinerator, is that the same Seneca where the women's rights movement started?
Yes, that's where it is. It's the same.
Yeah, Seneca Falls.
Yeah, Seneca Falls. George Bailey.
We're polluting all over our beautiful and precious nature.
And yeah, I don't know. I didn't hear what Debbie said.
It's just places, the places they tend to be like out in, those types of communities in more rural or those areas where I think nobody's gonna notice.
Yeah. And Brookhaven. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Next month, we're going to have somebody talking about waste transfer stations and a great project that they worked on. Just as a teaser, hopefully it's next month. So I feel that we should move on because we could talk about this forever. This is actually the kind of thing we all want to dig our hands into and talk about this for the whole entire meeting. But can we have some updates from everyone? Thank you again very much, Alex. Do it.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
here.
Have a button.
Yeah.
We have buttons.
Yeah,
Thanks
when you
to
come in
Pablo.
person,
When you come in person.
you get a button.
We're gonna
Back,
do this.
get a button.
Oh.
We're gonna get some more information.
Oh, okay, so the presentation will happen again at the Manhattan SWAB next Wednesday
14th.
on the 14th in the evening. Will you do it again?
Yes.
An encore.
Hopefully with more
He'll be
information.
wearing a tuxedo.
Yeah, next time he's gonna wear a tuxedo. Perfect. Okay, so thank you very much again, Alex. Great work. He's great with the kids too at the recycling and compost bins. So let's do some updates. How about coalition updates? Anybody gonna do a Save Our Compost update? There's a lot going on there. Sherry, are you? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm here. I'll do a quick one, just looking at the time. So the big event from the last month was all the teach-ins. There were compost teach-ins at 3 of the libraries and 1 virtual, and I'm actually going to share a link in the chat and I'll send it out to the members and guests tonight of the recording for those. And this is how you can access it. But they were, I mean, from what I could tell, pretty well attended. We haven't done sort of a wrap on those yet because our meeting's not till next Monday. But those went well. There's another group working on some possible legislation, which I don't have an update on. Someone else may. I can open it up to other folks that might. And then we're having another meeting next week. So we will see where things go from there. But the funding has not changed much. You know, anyone getting private funding, I don't know of anything there. That's a big impact. Yeah, I think that is my quick update. Mariella, did you want to add to that?
Sure, just to fill in the blank on the legislative.
Thank you.
Sure, Renee Crowley has been running those sessions and they've created a 1-pager, which probably is going to be a 2-pager about priorities from legislation that the Save Our Compost Coalition would like to see. They're in the process of finalizing it. All comments are due by tomorrow. And I'm sure it will continue ongoing, but you know, this is kind of the first iteration, the first full iteration of their priorities. So if anyone would be interested in seeing that, if they're part of the coalition, let me know.
Thank you.
I should add, we also sent out a little survey to folks that had attended, or I think possibly all registered as well, to see if folks are getting, or you know, interested in being more active. So we're also working on you know, sorting through those responses, and we'll reach out accordingly depending on capacity and things like that. But we're gonna, we've got some other activities going on. But I think the next big one's the legislation group. So that Mary Ellen mentioned.
Excellent, thank you.
Yep.
And thanks for all the work you're doing in that. A reusable NYC. Who attends that? Uli or?
Oh, I attended last month. I think the big thing that was covered was the water bottle filling bill that passed, which is really exciting. I think another thing that was mentioned is that there's that upcoming lobby day that Beyond Plastic is putting together, and they were encouraging people to register for that. So make sure if you're interested to do that. I can paste that in the chat. But yeah, that was mainly what was covered.
And can you send that around in the email also after, Uli, the register to go to lobby day?
Sure, yeah, I can.
There's a lot of great people here who would be good at that.
Sounds good. I'll send it out.
Tuesday, February 27th. And also, do you have any information about the water bottle filling? The chat? The new bill about the water, reusable water bottle?
Sorry, there was some feedback. I didn't. What was the full question?
Sorry, I'll say it again. Do you have information that you could throw in the chat about the reusable water bottle bill?
Yeah, there was a timeout article. I can share that as well.
Okay, thanks. Okay, executive committee, we've already voted to approve the minutes. And the big thing with is we had a meeting with the SWAB chairs, had a meeting with the we went to monthly meetings with the sanitation chair, and I mean, sorry, the sanitation commissioner and her staff, maybe everybody in the building. And she remains, she maintains that she's supporting it. She's doing what she can. Her lane is budget, she believes, and advocacy is what we should be doing. And what?
Looking to the city council for some direction.
Yeah, she really wants to, yeah, she wants to take her cues from the city council. She's very She understands the big outcry and the support for community compost. So, and she is heeding that as best she can, wants to heed that. That's the message. Anything else, Matt? I think that's it. The legislative committee.
Yeah, that's me again. So we covered those updates. We also talked about the changes. You know, as we all know, the sanitation committee chair changed to Abreu. And for the most part, we're kind of waiting to see which bills get reintroduced. And then in the next session, we'll start to think about prioritizing our next steps there. So yeah, come to our next meeting. It's next Thursday, and excited to have everyone there.
Excellent, thank you. Outreach.
And that's back to me. Hi, everyone. We had our meeting on January 16th, and we had Thad Copeland from DOE Schools was there to give us some updates since he had joined us last in August. And updates for you all. There, all of the NYC schools, I believe, are scheduled to have curbside available to them by the end of March. All the public schools, right? And it's not going to have a break in the summer. It's supposed to be year round. So some of that, you know, fine line details. Oh, thank you, Danielle. Some charter schools as well. Yeah, you'll probably know way more about this than I do, but feel free to jump in. And so some of those details are being worked out. I think earlier the climate action days were mentioned, and they've been working on promoting that. So we're helping promoting that as well through social media. There was a February 2nd in-person training for educators that I know Beth was able to attend, that we were invited to have a couple of folks join if they were able to. So I'll let Beth, do you want to say anything about that?
I can, sort of over
Yeah.
here on the side here. I was gonna say, I see Danielle is still here, which is great. Forgive me when I butcher this, you know, description of this training. But there was a really wonderful training that was put together for educators on curbside composting in schools that was held actually across the street from Borough Hall at Brooklyn Law School. There were, you know, it was really geared towards educators who were just starting out with curbside composting at their school. So whether either they were in like the January cohort and began there, or they're about to receive curbside in March. There were a lot of sustainability coordinators from schools, some administrators, in addition to the entire Grow NYC Zero Waste Schools team that was there. There were also the folks from the New York City Public Schools Energy and Sustainability team, as well as from DSNY Schools team. They have two full-time people who do work in schools as well. And it was really a full day of workshops, really exciting things from, you know, building green teams to, you know, creating school sustainability councils to having lesson plans for at the elementary or high school level to really promote this work in schools. So I was really grateful that I could go. And truthfully, for me as a SWAB member, the most valuable thing that I really took from it was something that was not at all shared with the teachers, but is the fact that the Zero Waste Schools program has lost its funding. And I am really hoping that as a SWAB, we can rally around them to keep this programming going, because it's really vital. So I'm very glad that I was able to be there and make those connections, and that Danielle could be here this evening as well to help keep the conversation going.
Yeah, and I also just want to add, like, in terms of waste reductions, schools, the 700 and some plus schools are having plastic free lunch day once a month.
There was a lot of talk of that, Rhonda.
Was there?
There was, yes, there was a lot of mention of plastic-free lunch.
And it's funny because it's interesting because schools are slow, some kitchen staffs are not joining in. And we're creating a toolkit right now that includes, you know, data collection and all the whys and hows, that where students can start to have meetings with their kitchen staff to ask them to participate in Plastic-Free Lunch Day. So, and it's very effective. There's but it's wonderful. And then twice a year, there's schools and school districts all over the country who join in.
I've got nothing to add except I really appreciate how well you encapsulated the training. Our entire staff was there. We worked really hard to put that together for schools and for sustainability coordinators, just so that they can feel empowered to take the next steps in their buildings with food waste, with plastic waste, with just like driving the change that is necessary in their schools, and also how to make those connections. So the only other thing I would say is we do talk about Plastic-Free Lunch Day, and last year, Rhonda, we did a training together. Let's think about if that would be useful, a workshop for sustainability coordinators or other educators who'd like to participate. We can talk offline about that, but I thought I'd add that or share that.
Let's do it. Okay.
Thank you. I'm not quite done with the full update.
Oh, yes, sorry.
I wanted to jump to that because I thought it was important, and it's, you know, it was a full day of work and workshops, I should say, more than a full day of work to make that happen. We're also, as a committee, putting together a short survey to send out to the community boards that we have been in contact with, just to kind of do a check-in with them, because it's been a little bit of time just to see how they're doing, how, you know, if they know about the upcoming, all the rules that are coming into play, and how we can help support them. So that's in progress. There's a few other things we talked about at the meeting as well, but again, time-wise, we're running short. Lee has still been doing a fantastic job promoting things on Instagram, which we're very thankful for. And then our next meeting is currently scheduled for Tuesday, the 13th. I think in the agenda, it's a little bit flipped around. I saw it. But several of us, at least 3 now that I know of, are taking the academy. I should say it was the Zero Waste Academy. Now it's called the Trash Academy by the Sanitation Foundation. So that has an event. The first module is that on Tuesday from 6 to 7. So one of the things I realized that the Borough President's event was also on Tuesday night. Mark and I had talked about him leading a meeting, because sorry, I'm jumping around a little bit, but within the committee, we wanted to have a subcommittee focused on supporting schools and how we can do some more work with where we can be most helpful there. So we had talked about just doing a breakout session on folks that are interested in that subcommittee. So I think we're going to have a little email chain to confirm that we'll have a meeting. I'm thinking we just have to see if anyone was planning on going to Borough President's event, so I don't want to directly conflict. But we were thinking of doing a 7:05 to 8 p.m. meeting on Tuesday. So that's one of the things. And I will say that if anyone, and I'll let you jump in, Mark, if you wanted to add anything, if you want to join and you're not already on the list that I sent notes out to last week, I just put my email in the chat if you want to let me know and we can loop you in. So right now, next steps are a smaller subcommittee, school-focused subcommittee to meet next. So I think that's where we're at. And apologies to the other committee members, because we were literally chatting about this right before the meeting. So trying to figure out how to accommodate schedules. So there might be a little shifting. I think that's all.
Okay.
for outreach.
Organics outreach, thank you very much for all that.
Hi, I think a lot of it was talked about as far as, what the Save Our Compost is doing, because we're, 100% of supporting that. The fact sheets, the legislation that various groups are working on. So that'll all be coming together. We do have our organics committee meeting on Monday. I always like to ask what you in Brooklyn are seeing as far as use of brown bins. Like, are you seeing everybody putting out brown bins? Are you seeing them just here and there? Are you aware of, people that need help with their buildings or help in general? I just, if I'm always interested to know what you guys are seeing, because you're there. So, and then just one thing I wanted to add on what Shari said, I'm certainly very interested in the school subcommittee. And there are a couple people, we have someone I met who was a former sustainability coordinator at a school, and some other people on the SWAB that are definitely interested in schools. So.
Great, thank you so much. Events committee? Oh, wait, is your next meeting March, the first Monday in March? Allison?
Oh, no, it's Monday. What's Monday's date?
Oh, the 12th?
Yes.
Oh, great, okay.
Monday of the month, typically.
Okay. Okay, so the 12th, everybody. All right, so events committee. Is Liz here?
I don't think so. I don't see him.
Okay. How about the NYCHA committee?
I'm here.
Hi, Susan.
Hi. I went to the Zoom meeting on the 1st of February, which was last Thursday. And the next meeting is the 7th of March, which is the first Thursday in March. And there we were talking about this federal grant. They're writing the federal community change grant, and Joyce is trying to get a lot of money, I guess, for SWAB. And she's writing it in conjunction with one of the environmentally concerned groups within NYCHA. And there also another area where they're working, the NYCHA committee is working, is identifying people who have been active in environmental and green type of advocacy, and also gardening. They're identifying residents in NYCHA to just increase the support for recycling and in NYCHA. And they're also doing education and promotion of recycling in the NYCHA campuses. And one thing I thought was interesting that just shows that I learned, that shows the difference between the solid waste management at NYCHA and regular solid waste management in the city, is that apparently there haven't been waste audits, from what they were saying, because they meet with the management of NYCHA, some of the upper people, and they were very excited to think that Manhattan SWAB might actually be able to recruit people, volunteers, to do waste audits in one NYCHA campus, because they don't have that kind of data. So maybe that will be a volunteer activity. I will let you know. So that's about it, I think, that I can report right now. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Susan. That's exciting. A lot of good stuff going on. Waste audits. Exciting. Okay, so let's move on to the announcements and open floor. There's a lot preloaded in here. First of all, it was requested that we go over the SWAB email lists. I think we should do that in the interest of time. We should just send out an email about that, unless someone feels like they want to have us walk through it. There's 3 SWAB sort of email lists, and when to use which. We'll send an email about that, and then if anybody has any questions, we can have a tutorial. We can schedule a tutorial. Yeah, do.
Because there is a general public list that everyone gets notifications for meetings on, and any like large events that we want the community to know about. And then in the middle is the members and regular guests. If you're someone who comes to the meetings a lot, SWAB meetings a lot, and you're not on that members and regular guests list, actually, I want you to flag yourself so that we can make sure that we add you to that list. So and you can email the SWAB email address, and we'll just make sure that we add you.
Yeah.
And then there's a members only list.
Yeah. And so basically anything you want to share, just share it out, whichever list you want.
Yeah, because the members and regular guests, you can post and share things to everyone. And the general public, no one can post except for the SWAB, like leadership.
Oh, okay. I didn't even realize that. Thanks for the bribe. Okay, so I feel like we should talk about CWZ. We talked about it a little bit already. And also the DSNY's shift to rigid containers. It was requested that we talk about that. And I can say what I know about it from our meeting with the commissioner. The shift, and it's actually everything that's on the website, but it might not seem clear from the website. So starting, I think this summer, everything, if you're in a 1 to 9 unit residential building, and Kendall, correct me if you understand something different than this, or anybody who's on here. So this summer, starting this summer, everyone's gonna have to put their bins, their trash out in a bin. It can just be what you keep it in the front of your house or wherever you keep it. And then starting in another later time, which is on our thing, and I'm sorry I don't have these details, everybody's gonna have to use DSNY bins, like a standardized bin situation. Now, starting this summer, if you need to buy a bin because yours is wonky or you don't really have one, you can buy one from DSNY at a low cost. But eventually by 2025, something like that, everyone's gonna have to buy the DSNY bins. So spread the word to just buy the DSNY ones to begin with, and don't buy your own. They want it to be a standard size, and I think that's the bottom line. Anything else? And they're really good too, right?
Well, Rhonda, if I could, I mean, I have no idea what the commissioner told you because they have not published anything in writing about this. They've not published yet a draft rule that they said that they would be issuing that would lay out what the new requirements are. So if she told you something that starts this summer, that's news to me. The only thing I know is that they went to the market for containers last fall and asked vendors of rigid containers to come up with a scheme for providing millions of their containers that would be available for purchase from those vendors on a discounted basis.
Right.
And that at some point, those containers would become the required containers. They're not DSNY containers, they're sort of DSNY approved, but DSNY is not, touching them. They're requiring the vendors to set up the purchase and distribution and maintenance systems for it. There were proposals that were expected for that a couple of weeks ago, I think. They were delayed. The deadline was delayed a couple of times. But again, they've not yet issued a draft regulation for public comment, nor have they done any sort of discussion with community boards or anybody else about moving in that direction. So this is about the 4th or 5th step in the process that the commissioner has been promoting over the last couple of years that Councilmember Abreu referred to, beginning with the change in set out times. And then on the commercial side, requiring initially that organics generators had to use sealed containers. Then the next step was any chain of more than 5 locations or something like that had to move to rigid containers. And now as of March 1, all commercial businesses have to shift to commercial containers, which interestingly was the way things were done about 25 years ago. And then DSNY wanted the containers off the sidewalk, and businesses mostly went to bag collection. So that's what's happened on the commercial side. And then her latest push has been for containerization of large residential buildings over 10 units or more. And then this final step that we just talked about, which is 1 to 9s, which is, I'm a single family, a homeowner, and that's going to affect me, and that will kick in at some point in the coming year. But again, without really any sort of public consultation, explanation, workshopping of it, information about pricing. I don't know how I'm not quite sure how the container industry responded to it, but they were pretty concerned that this was a different approach than they were used to dealing with hundreds of other cities around container purchasing and distribution. So it's just something that I would expect there's going to be a fair amount of blowback from community boards and neighborhoods and the like that we should be anticipating and inform ourselves as best we can about what this change means and how it's going to be implemented.
Okay. So you're just saying that the draft regulation is just that, like everything I just said wasn't just a secret from the commissioner, it was from the website also. But you mean like an official process where there's a draft regulation and then there's comment and more interaction?
Right, because if it's going to be something that is required or enforced upon, they have to issue a rule or regulation and formally adopt it in order to get into that game of enforcement. Okay. So it can't just by edict say, by June 15th, go buy a container.
Right. Okay.
Mark, what you just posted is about commercial containers. Thank you, not residential. So
I just find it kind of amazing that this is happening and there's been so little discussion of it. That's why I wanted to bring it up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would tell you from talking to some of the private carters and businesses around it, they grumbled a little bit that they were never consulted about this change, but from the labor perspective on the carter side, use of containers takes a little bit more time, but results in fewer injuries than dealing with bags and other things on the sidewalk. So that's sort of anecdotal feedback that I've gotten from some of the carters. So, but again, none of this has been sort of workshopped or done through any sort of public consultation process. And but I expect the one that's going to get most attention is the 1 to 9 family requirement when that gets posted, because the that was mentioned in the procurement for the container vendors, and part of the questioning back from those vendors was, how do we know that if we tell you we're gonna provide 5 million containers, that anyone's actually going to buy them? And DSNY's response was because we're going to require everyone to buy those containers.
Right.
So that's what I know right now, but that's we're in sort of this limbo space right now because they haven't issued the formal rule or announcement about it.
I was just wondering if you had heard if, along with that, there would, how much the bins will cost, if you know anything about that, or if they have mentioned that there would be any kind of like subsidy.
Yeah.
One of the things that keeps coming up, we keep getting constituent complaints about bins, on the commercial side getting stolen. And I wonder, like, they have to create some kind of system that will disincentivize that.
Right.
Yeah, my understanding on the cost is DSNY is urging the vendors to provide them as cheaply as possible, something I think in the $50 to $75 a container range. There may be a couple different sizes of containers. There may be the option for a recycling container. I know that's a subject for discussion as well about whether the requirement extends to recycling and or organics or not. And I don't, right now I don't think it does, but that remains to be seen.
Yeah, I
Okay.
just added, Kendall, the same like residential waste containerization page, which just does not have the level of detail that the commercial does yet. It just says fall 2024. Residential buildings 1 to 9 will be required to set out all trash in containers with secure lids, but it doesn't detail what those need to be yet. So there's a whole, it's way more vague at this point, at least what's on their website.
Okay.
Right.
And Rhonda, I know we're short on time, so we can pick that topic up again, but you want a few minutes on commercial waste zones?
Yeah, let's talk.
So again, I don't know what the commissioner told you, but the department finally announced last week the quote unquote winners of the franchises for the commercial waste zones in the city. And for those of you who weren't around, 5 years ago in 2019, the council passed local law 199 that began the process of shifting from an open market system for commercial waste to a system of geographic zones with DSNY selected franchise operators. So the city was divided by map into 20 zones. Each zone has up to 3 franchise awardees that will get 10-year contracts initially to provide service within that zone. So that 20 times 3 means there were 60 slots available. What they announced last week, and just as this sort of high level, and we can go further into it down the road, but they awarded franchises to 18 companies. 8 of those 18 got 1 zone. The other 52 slots were shared by 10 companies. In Brooklyn in particular, Brooklyn has 5 zones. And there were 7 different awardees that will divide those 15 slots. So there were 3 companies that got 1 zone each, 1 slot each, I should say. 2 companies that got 2 slots, 1 company that got 3 slots, and 1 company that got 5 slots or a slot in each of the zones. So what happens now is that DSNY just published a draft rule that they want to do a 1 zone pilot. And they have chosen Queens Central zone to do that in, starting in September, would run until January, so 4 months. They want to do that in order to sort of test what they've put in motion to see how it works, how the outreach to businesses goes, how the transition goes and the like. And then based on that, then they would develop a further schedule for implementation over the next year or 2 in the remaining 19 zones in the city. So we're still at the, I don't know what to call it, a midpoint, the 5th inning, the 6th inning, the 4th inning, whatever else of the implementation of the overall scheme, but it's going to take another couple of years for it to roll out. And just one other high level thing, when the department started this process and it was slowed by COVID, they did it with the first phase they did was to sort of pre-qualify potential bidders. And they pre-qualified about 45 that submitted documents initially and said, we're interested in this. When they finally went to a full proposal, there were about 34 companies that submitted full proposals. So again, there were 18 that were selected. So there are 16 that at some point in the next year or 2 will be either going out of business. Maybe 1 or 2 of them will operate as subs to the 18 that were selected. But the size of the industry, to the extent anybody cares, is going from about 45 or 50 companies a number of years ago to 34 that sought a zone to 18 that are survivors. There will be some further consolidation now that the winners are known. So it's anybody's guess as to how much additional shrinkage there will be in the industry. But that's sort of high level of the announcement of last week and what we have to look forward to with its implementation over the next year or 2.
Okay, well, that was pretty thorough. Thank you so much for that. I'm sure that we'll continue to talk about it, both that and the 1 to 9 unit, as we get more details or as we get a little more pushback going on about having a public process. That's it, I guess. We're a minute early if we want to finish. Does anybody have anything else?
Can I have just one thing from the announcements, because there's lots of upcoming conferences and things. One thing I did want to bring up, and Sherry, this might be just something to bring up in the outreach committee when we meet next, is that NYBG is having their Crazy for Composting event on March 16th, and it is a potential tabling opportunity for the SWAB, or even that, like jointly SWABs. I don't know how we want to do it, but something that we should just discuss and make sure doesn't fall off our radar.
Thank you for that. There's a few things I think upcoming. That's a good one. And we have done joint SWAB tabling a number of times before successfully. I think many on the call were involved. So I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, I know Manhattan, we're talking about tabling, so we can maybe talk offline about it.
That's great.
Sounds good.
Thank you, Ben.
Awesome.
Okay, awesome.
And our next meeting is
next is
March 4th.
Yeah. Monday, March 4th.
Can we plan for anyone that wants to be in person to plan to go out after for a little social time?
Yes. Quarterly social hour.
That's a great idea.
Take it.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's wonderful.
Great.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Great.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Hi, thank you.
Thanks a lot for running this.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Good night.
you.
Thanks, Danielle.
Hi, Michael.
Good to see